I came home early with a home-cooked dinner to surprise my husband, only to overhear him on the phone with his mother saying he regrets marrying someone so boring and wishes he could leave me. So, I work as a marketing manager and my days are usually pretty brutal, super long. But yesterday, I actually managed to wrap up my client presentations way early. I had this amazing idea. I was going to surprise my husband, David, with his favorite homemade lasagna. We've been married 3 years and honestly we've both been so swamped lately, just no real quality time. I knew he'd been stressed with his job at the accounting firm, so I thought, a nice dinner, maybe a quiet evening, just us would be perfect. I stopped by the grocery store on the way home, grabbed all the ingredients and of course that bottle of wine he loves. I was genuinely excited, picturing his face when he walked in, smelling his favorite meal cooking. Maybe we could just relax, talk like we used to when we were dating, I got home around 4 p.m., which is ridiculously early for me. I usually don't get off until 6 or 7, and David's car was in the driveway. That was weird. He's usually at work until at least 5:30. I saw the living room lights were on and I figured, okay, maybe he's sick, or he just left work early for some reason. But as I was pulling the groceries out of my car, I heard voices coming from inside the house. I recognized David's voice, and then, unmistakably, his mother, Linda. Now this was really strange. Linda always calls before she comes over. She lives about an hour away, so it's not like she just drops by casually. I was juggling these heavy grocery bags, fumbling for my keys, when I heard David's voice get louder. He sounded frustrated, set even. So I slowed down thinking, okay, maybe they're having a serious conversation, I don't want to interrupt. And that's when it happened. That's when I heard him say something that made my blood run absolutely cold. I just don't know how much longer I can keep pretending, Mom. She's so boring and predictable. And I feel like I'm dying inside every day I come home to her. The grocery bag slipped from my hand. Groceries scattered everywhere. I just stood there frozen. No way. He couldn't be talking about me, right? But then Linda responded and her voice was so calm, so casual. Well, honey, you've only been married 3 years. It's not too late to start over if you're really that unhappy. And David? He just sighed. I know, but it's complicated. We have the house, all our finances are tied together. Everyone expects us to be this perfect couple, but I just feel trapped. She comes home every night and wants to talk about her day and watch Netflix. And I just sit there thinking about how this is going to be my life forever. My stomach lurched. I felt like I was going to throw up. This was it. This was definitely about me. I couldn't understand it. Where was this coming from? I thought we were happy, or at least content. Sure, maybe we'd fallen into a routine, but that's what married couples do, right? You build a life together, you find your rhythm. Linda, his own mother, then said, David, you can't stay in a marriage just because it's convenient or because people expect it. You're still young. You could find someone who actually excites you and makes you want to come home every day. He sighed again, heavy and defeated. I know you're right. It's just that she tries so hard to be a good wife and she really loves me and I feel guilty for not feeling the same way anymore. Like yesterday, she texted me about wanting to plan a weekend getaway. And all I could think was how I'd rather go alone, or with literally anyone else. That hit me like a truck. A literal physical blow. I had texted him about that bed and breakfast we'd talked about months ago. He'd seemed enthusiastic. Apparently he was just pretending. I was still standing there, groceries scattered around my feet, trying to process that my husband had been lying to me about basic things, like wanting to spend time together. Linda continued, Guilt isn't a good enough reason to stay married, David. You're both still young enough to find real happiness with other people. But every year you wait, it's going to get harder. I know, David said. And then he dropped the bomb. And honestly, there's this woman at work, Rebecca, who I've been talking to more and more. She's everything my wife isn't. She's spontaneous and funny. And when I'm with her, I remember what it feels like to actually want to be around someone. I had to grab onto my car, my head spinning. Dizzy. Sick. Another woman? Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Why he'd been working late more often. Why he'd been so distant during our conversations. Why he'd seemed less interested in physical intimacy lately. He wasn't just unhappy with our marriage. He was already emotionally involved with someone else. Linda asked, Have you and Rebecca crossed any lines? And David paused. A long agonizing pause. Then he said, Not physically, but emotionally. Yeah, definitely. We text all day and we've had lunch together several times. I've told her things about my marriage that I probably shouldn't have. She knows I'm unhappy, and she's made it pretty clear that she's interested in more than friendship. Well then, Linda said, it sounds like you already know what you want to do. The question is, When are you going to be honest with your wife instead of stringing her along? David's voice was full of self-pity. I've been thinking about it constantly, but I keep chickening out. Because she's going to be devastated. Her whole identity is wrapped up in being a wife and building this perfect little life together. She talks about kids and retirement and growing old together. And I just smile and nod, but inside, I'm screaming because I can't imagine anything worse than being stuck in this boring, predictable life forever. I realized I was crying. Hot tears streamed down my face, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely function. This was my husband, talking about our marriage like it was a prison sentence. Describing me like I was some pathetic woman whose only purpose was being a wife, when I have a successful career and friends and hobbies outside of our relationship. Linda, ever the enabler, said, David, you can't keep living a lie. It's not fair to either of you. She deserves to be with someone who appreciates her. And you deserve to be with someone who makes you happy. I know, he said. Rebecca and I have been talking about what it would be like if we were together. And it's everything I wish I had. She wants to travel and try new restaurants. And she's not obsessed with creating some perfect domestic life. She actually has opinions about things and challenges me instead of just agreeing with everything I say. The way he was describing this Rebecca woman made it sound like I was some boring housewife with no personality. That's not who I am. I love trying new things and I have plenty of opinions. I just don't pick fights over every little thing because I thought we were a team working toward common goals. So, when are you going to tell her? Linda asked. David sighed again. Soon, I think. Maybe after the holidays, because I don't want to ruin Christmas for her family. But definitely before our anniversary next year. Because I can't pretend to celebrate another year of a marriage I want out of. Linda, ever so practical, said, That's probably smart to wait until after the holidays, but David, don't wait too long because the longer you put it off, the harder it's going to be, and the more attached she's going to get to this life you've built together. Yeah, David said. And honestly, Rebecca is starting to get impatient because she wants to make this official. And I don't blame her. She's amazing, and I don't want to lose her because I'm too much of a coward to end a marriage that's been over for months anyway. I couldn't listen anymore. I quietly gathered up the groceries that had fallen, my hands still trembling, and got back in my car. I sat there for probably 10 minutes, just trying to process what I'd heard, before I finally started the engine and drove to my sister Sarah's house. I needed someone. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. When I got to Sarah's place, I was crying so hard I could barely talk. She took one look at me and knew something terrible had happened. I told her everything. Every single word I'd heard. She was furious. She kept saying she never liked David anyway. That she'd always thought he was fake and condescending, but hadn't wanted to say anything because I seemed happy. What are you going to do? She asked, and I realized I had no idea. My entire adult life had been built around this marriage, around this man who apparently saw me as boring and predictable, and who had been planning his escape for months while lying to my face every single day. Sarah said, You need to confront him tonight before this goes any further. But I told her I needed time to think. I was so shocked, so hurt. I didn't trust myself to have a rational conversation. And I definitely didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart, when he's probably been hoping I'd make it easy for him by being the one to bring up divorce. I stayed at Sarah's for a few hours just trying to breathe, and then went home around 8 p.m. I found David in the kitchen making himself dinner. He looked up when I walked in, smiled like nothing had happened, and asked how my day was if I wanted to order takeout. I just looked at him. I had an interesting day, I said, my voice flat. How was yours? Oh, you know, he said, completely oblivious. Same old boring stuff at the office, nothing exciting. I wanted to scream. He was lying right to my face after spending the afternoon planning his exit strategy with his mother, and talking about another woman he was clearly having an emotional affair with. Did you do anything else today besides work? I asked. He hesitated just for a second, then said, No, just came straight home. Why? That's funny, I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. Because your car was here when I came by earlier to surprise you, but you didn't answer the door, so I figured you were in the shower or something. His face went completely white. He stammered something about maybe taking a quick nap and not hearing the doorbell, but I could see the panic in his eyes. He knew. He realized I might have overheard something. Well, I'm pretty tired, I said, so I think I'm going to go to bed early. He looked relieved, said that was fine. He was probably going to watch TV for a while anyway. I went upstairs and laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. This man I've loved and trusted for over 5 years, has been living a complete lie, planning to abandon our marriage while making me think everything was fine. The worst part? He's probably been sharing intimate details about our relationship with this Rebecca person, painting me as some clingy, boring wife, when I've been working my butt off to build a life with someone who apparently checked out months ago. I kept thinking about all the times recently when I tried to plan things for us, or suggested date nights, and he seemed so unenthusiastic. Now I know it's because he's been comparing everything to what he could be doing with her instead. Every conversation we've had about our future has been meaningless to him, because he's already decided he wants a different future, with someone else. And the thing that really gets me? He's planning to wait until after the holidays to tell me. That means he's going to sit through Christmas dinner with my family, smile, and play the loving husband role, while secretly counting down the days until he can dump me and run off with his work girlfriend. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew with absolute certainty that I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal when my husband thought I was boring and predictable, and had been emotionally cheating on me with someone he was already planning a life with. I couldn't sleep all night. That conversation just kept replaying in my head over and over. This morning when David left for work, he kissed me goodbye and told me he loved me, just like he does every morning. But now I know it's all an act. He's probably going straight to work to text Rebecca about how he can't wait to be free of his boring wife. I called in sick to work. There was no way I could concentrate on client presentations when my entire life just got turned upside down. I needed to figure out my next move. I spent most of the morning crying, and then slowly the anger started to build. How dare he make me feel like there's something wrong with me for wanting a stable, loving marriage, when that's what we both said we wanted when we got married. Around noon, I decided to do something I've never done before. I drove to David's office building. I needed to see this Rebecca person for myself. I needed to understand what I was apparently competing with. I sat in the parking garage for about an hour, feeling like a complete crazy person. But then I saw him, David, walking toward the elevator with a woman I didn't recognize. They were laughing about something, and he had his hand on her lower back in a way that was definitely not professional. She was everything I'm not. Tall and blonde with perfect makeup, wearing a tight dress that probably cost more than I spend on clothes in 6 months. She looked like the kind of woman who's never had a boring day in her life. And suddenly I understood. I understood why David felt trapped in our quiet, domestic routine when he could be with someone who looked like she stepped out of a magazine. I watched them get on the elevator together. David was smiling at her in a way I haven't seen him smile at me in months. And in that moment I realized this isn't just an emotional affair anymore. You don't touch someone like that, or look at them like that, unless things have already gotten physical. I drove home feeling numb. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to wait for David to work up the courage to leave me. If he wants out, then I'm going to make it easy for him. But I am not going to let him control the timeline or the narrative. I called a divorce lawyer and made an appointment for tomorrow morning. I'm not going to sit around waiting for him to dump me after the holidays like I'm some pathetic wife who doesn't deserve honesty or respect. I also called my boss and told her I needed to take a few personal days to deal with a family emergency, which isn't really a lie, because my marriage falling apart definitely qualifies as an emergency. The hardest part was calling my parents and telling them what was happening. They love David. They always talk about what a good husband he is, and how lucky I am to have found someone so stable and reliable. My mom started crying and kept asking if I was sure, if maybe I'd misunderstood what I heard. But I told her there was no misunderstanding. David clearly said he regrets marrying me, and is already involved with someone else. My dad was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Honey, I'm sorry you're going through this. But if that's how he really feels, then you're better off finding out now, before you waste any more years with someone who doesn't appreciate what he has." When David came home tonight, he was in a good mood, which probably means he had a nice day with Rebecca, planning their future together while I was having the worst day of my life. He asked what I did today since I wasn't at work, and I told him I wasn't feeling well and spent the day resting. He said, "Well, hopefully you'll feel better tomorrow, because I was thinking maybe we could try that new restaurant downtown this weekend." I just looked at him. I thought about how he told his mother yesterday that the idea of going anywhere with me made him miserable. But here he is, still pretending to want to spend time with me. "Actually," I said, "I think I'm going to be busy this weekend." He looked surprised. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Just some things I need to take care of," I said. He didn't push it, but I could tell he was confused because I never have mysterious plans that I don't want to share with him. I'm meeting with the lawyer in the morning, and then I'm going to come home and tell David exactly what I heard, and that I know about Rebecca, and that he doesn't have to wait until after the holidays to start his new life. Because I'm done pretending everything is fine when my husband thinks I'm boring, and has already moved on emotionally. It's been 2 weeks since I confronted David, and he moved out last weekend to a furnished apartment across town. The house feels empty, yes, but also peaceful, without the constant tension of living with someone who was pretending to love me while planning to leave. The divorce paperwork is moving along smoothly. David hasn't tried to fight anything, which just confirms that he really did want out and was just too much of a coward to be the one to initiate it. He came by yesterday to get more of his things and he looked so guilty. He kept trying to make small talk, but I just stayed upstairs until he was done. I found out through a mutual friend that David and Rebecca are already officially together, posting pictures on social media like they're some perfect couple, which is pretty disgusting considering he was married to me less than a month ago. But I guess when you've been planning something for months, it's easy to move on quickly. The weird part is that I'm not as devastated as I thought I'd be. Yes, it hurts to know that someone I loved was capable of such deception, but I'm also so incredibly relieved to be free of a relationship where I was constantly trying to figure out why something felt off, without realizing my husband had already emotionally left the marriage. My friends have been amazing. Several of them have admitted they never really liked David, but didn't want to say anything because I seemed happy. My sister Sarah said she always thought he was fake, and that she could tell he thought he was better than everyone around him, which honestly makes me feel so much better because it means the problem was never me being boring. It was him being a selfish person who wanted something different but was too dishonest to admit it. I've started seeing a therapist to work through the betrayal, and she's helped me understand that David's characterization of me as boring and predictable was really just him projecting his own dissatisfaction with his life choices onto me. She said that people who cheat emotionally often rewrite history to make their spouse seem inadequate so they can justify their behavior to themselves. It makes so much sense. Work has been a good distraction, too. My boss actually offered me a promotion that would involve traveling more and working with bigger clients, which is ironic because David always complained that I was too focused on my career. But now, that focus is paying off in ways that will benefit my new single life. I'm also rediscovering parts of myself that I'd maybe lost during the marriage. Not because David was controlling, but because I'd focused so much energy on being a good wife, that I'd stopped prioritizing my own interests and friendships. I've started taking a pottery class and signed up for a hiking group, and it turns out, I'm not boring at all when I'm not trying to accommodate someone who secretly resented everything about our life together. The funniest part? Yesterday I ran into Linda, David's mother, at the grocery store, and she had the nerve to try to apologize, saying she never meant for things to happen the way they did. I looked her dead in the eye. "Linda," I said, "you were David's mother, and it was your job to support him. But you should have encouraged him to be honest with me instead of helping him plan his deception." She tried to say she thought he would eventually work up the courage to tell me himself. "Well," I said, my voice firm, "he might have if you hadn't been enabling his cowardice and helping him justify treating me like I was the problem, when really he just wanted to chase after someone who made him feel young and exciting again." She looked hurt, but I don't really care. She played a role in making one of the worst periods of my life even longer by encouraging David to wait until after the holidays to devastate me. I know I'm going to be fine. I'm the same person I was before David decided I was boring. And I'm realizing that someone who truly loved me would have seen my stability and loyalty as strengths, not weaknesses. Rebecca can have him. She can have his wandering eye and his tendency to blame other people for his own unhappiness, because those qualities that attracted him to her will eventually make him dissatisfied with her too. The divorce should be final in another month, and then I can close this chapter completely and start building a life based on what I actually want, instead of what I thought would make someone else happy. Sometimes the most devastating truths really are spoken when they think you can't hear them. But sometimes, overhearing those truths is exactly what you need to stop wasting your life on someone who doesn't deserve you.